Scott, I know the hot topic now is the change in the overtime law. What is going to be the change that the employer needs to prepare for? When do they need to be prepared? When does that take effect? So that's something that has a lot of people on the edge right now.
Yes, it does. I've given several presentations on it, and different industries are impacted in different ways. But the general overview of these overtime laws that have been revised is that by December, companies will need to be in compliance. So December 2016. The reality is companies need to be preparing now because you have to do an analysis. So anyhow, let me first answer the question. December 2006.
December 1st.
December 1st. 2016 is when you need to be in compliance with the law. Okay, so that's the time frame. The preparation for the compliance piece is a legal analysis of whether an employee will or will not stay exempt from overtime payments as of December 1st, 2016. So there's two pieces to that. The biggest piece is that the change that the overtime laws are requiring is that an employee who is paid on a salary basis should have a minimum salary of $47,000. I just rounded out to $47,500. It's $47,476, but I just rounded out to $47,500. So the days where companies would classify an employee as overtime exempt but pay them a salary less than $47,500, those days are over for most white-collar exemptions. There are certain exemptions that apply, but the general rule now is employees who are not going to be paid overtime must be paid $47,000. I rounded out to $47,500.
So even though employers pay on a salary basis and they think that because they're paid on a salary basis, they're not hourly, they're still subject to the overtime laws if their compensation is less than $47,500 per year.
Correct. That's a big change. The way I globally think about it is if you are not going to pay an employee overtime, that employee should have a salary that's roughly $50,000 and above.
So there's no exemptions or exceptions if they supervise people or what their position is. If their pay is less than that, then they're subject to overtime.
There's two components, and this is where I think there's significant misconceptions about the new overtime laws. You see in the newspapers and then in the media, and most companies know that there's a salary increase threshold that's going to be in place as of December 2016. That's the $47,500 number, okay? So companies understand, yes, I have to start paying employees $47,500 in salary.
Mm-hmm.
The piece where companies are not getting the information they need, or there's so much focus on this, how much the salary threshold needs to be, is what's neglected is even if you pay the employee $47,500 or $47,476 in salary, even if that's true, that's only one piece of the test. That's the salary test at the certain salary threshold that was set by the Department of Labor. The other piece to it is the duties test. That is, you could pay a janitor $47,500, but the janitor would not be exempt from overtime, meaning you'd have to pay the janitor overtime even though you paid them this higher salary, because the janitor's duties are not overtime exempt. So there's a salary at $47,500 level, and there's also the duties of the employees have to be exempt. And the duties being exempt is a piece that's not really talked about in most of the newspaper articles I've read, most of the presentations that I've heard, and actually in talking with employers, they're baffled by the fact that they're so focused on if they pay an employee a salary of $50,000 or $47,500 and above, they think the employee is automatically exempt. That's not the case. The employee still has to have overtime exempt duties, which are essentially management level duties, higher level administrative function duties or has a professional degree or experience. And so that's a significant piece of the salary overtime exemption test that, in my opinion, has been overlooked. And
But those people more than likely did not meet the exemption before.
More than likely, probably not. But some of them are in a gray area as whether they meet the test or that do they not. So as part of going back to the preparation, what companies need to do, they need to make an assessment as to whether they're going to pay the overtime exempt employee at the new salary threshold of $47,500, and they also need to make an assessment of, are the duties that they're performing, are they truly exempt? It's a good time to essentially audit or review your wage and hour practices.
So that's a big deal. That'll affect a lot of companies.
Yes, it will affect a lot of companies. I think it will lead to significant amount of litigation because either companies are not going to comply because they don't have the money to necessarily comply, and there's still a lot of misconceptions out there about what employees you have to pay overtime to or not. Just in talking with people on a day-to-day basis, there's still a thought that if you pay somebody a salary, they're not entitled to overtime. There's still the idea that if you pay a salary, then that's enough. You don't have to look at the duties. I mean, there's so many misconceptions that I think it's a good time to take this time to prepare for these new exemptions and to make sure the companies are on track.